Good morning, students. So yesterday I discussed about overloading constructors with array of class objects. Okay, so we saw that in this particular program that the object was declared as an array with having subscript 4, index 4, right? So based on that, you created 4 array elements, and since you had 4 array elements, okay, so 4 constructors uh, were called, right? So four constructors called. So you had the default constructor, you had parameterized constructor with four parameters, three parameters, two parameters, like that. And so based on that, we saw that the constructor could be overloaded, okay, using the same constructor member function name again and again, okay, provided the parameters were different, okay. uh, so we could see that the advantage in that particular program, okay. So when you declare an object as an array of class, okay. So now I will start on destructors, okay. So we're reaching the end of this chapter also, okay. So destructor. So what is destructor? The constructor and destructor is just the opposite, okay. The word itself is like constructor, it's used to construct, destructor used to destroy, like that, right? So the word matches very clearly. What is constructor? Constructor, it is used to initialize the object data members. It is used to initialize the object, right? So constructor creates memory space for the object data members. So once you create the object, once the object gets declared by the class, right, the constructor gets called, the constructor gets invoked. So what happens is that the object data members gets initialized. So what happens is that the memory space gets created, right? But in the case of the destructor, it's quite the opposite, okay. The purpose of the destructor is to ensure that, okay, that once the object goes out of the scope, once the purpose of the object is done, okay, the destructor destroys the object, okay. So that is the only difference, okay. So it's quite easy to understand in terms of destructor. Constructor constructs uh, the memory space, okay, for the object. Destructor destroys the object. Constructor, okay, gets invoked when the object gets created. Destructor destroys the object, okay, the data members of the object and the object itself. So destructor is the counterpart of the constructor. It is a member function, okay. So it is also a member function that called automatically when a class object goes out of scope, okay. So when a class object goes out of scope, so that means once the purpose of the object gets done, okay, within that particular function body, within that particular local scope, okay, it may be in the main function, it may be in the other function body, okay. Once the object serves its body, okay, within that particular local uh, function body, within that local scope, okay, then uh, the destructor is called, okay. So once the lifetime of the object is done, okay, so the destructor gets called and the destructor destroys the object, okay. So that is the only thing, because keep in mind that the class data members does not occupy memory space till the object gets declared, so once the object gets declared, once the object gets created, then memory space is allocated for the object, right? So the purpose of the destructor is to ensure that the memory space that is occupied by the object, okay, gets uh, vacated, okay. So that memory space, okay, is in turn kept empty, okay. So its purpose is to perform any cleanup work necessary before an object is destroyed, okay. So the second special member function is the destructor. This function is the opposite of the constructor in the sense that it is invoked when an object ceases to exist, okay. So once the purpose of the object is done, okay, the role of the destructor is that particular member function gets invoked, gets called automatically, okay. Now for objects which are local non-static variables, the destructor is called when the block in which the object is defined is left. the destructor of objects that are defined in nested blocks of function are therefore called before the function itself terminates. Okay, so the destructor of objects that are denied somewhere in the outer block of function are called just before the function returns. So just before the function terminates, that means before the program, right? Okay, so the destructor is called so that to destroy the object itself. Okay, so these are some of the special characteristics that are listed below for the destructor. Okay, now you studied these points also. Okay, study definition of the destructor and study these characteristics. Okay, these also came in exams. Okay, the characteristics of a destructor. Okay, so the definitions, the use, all of this. Okay, so this paragraphs, this page, you study on that. So just like constructor, it is declared in the public section. Okay, that is under the public access specifier, that is always declared. Okay, it is invoked automatically when the object goes out of the scope. So if a destructor uh, is not explicitly declared, okay, it will be implicitly called. Okay, so implicitly it will be called automatically. Okay, so when the object gets out of the scope. Okay, so whether that means just like constructor, if you do not declare a constructor, automatically the default constructor gets invoked. Okay, so similarly the destructor also automatically gets invoked if it is not declared. Okay, they do not have any return type. Just like constructor, the destructor does not have any return type, not even void. They cannot be inherited, just like constructor. Okay, so this is in the later part, that is in the inheritance, which will cover up in the next chapter. They do not have any argument, since a destructor does not just like a default constructor. Okay, it it does not declare any parameters, or it does not accept any argument. Okay, except for in a constructor, default constructor, you have default arguments. Okay, but in terms of a destructor, it does not have any arguments also. That means it does not pass any values. Okay, they cannot be overloaded. Okay, so unlike a constructor, the destructors cannot be overloaded. Okay, so there can be only one destructor within the class. Okay, so we cannot refer to the address. Object with a destructor cannot be used as member of a union. A destructor can call other member functions also. Okay, so we'll see on that. So yes, so what is destructor now? The destructor has the same name as the class but includes a tilde as a prefix. Okay, prefix. So just like a constructor, the name of the constructor is also just similar, as same as the class name. Okay, now the destructor also has the same name as the class name. So it gets confusing, right? Constructor, which one is constructor, which one is destructor, which one is the class, right? Okay, now but keep in mind that constructor and destructor are member functions. Okay, class is a keyword. Constructor and destructor are member functions. Okay, the class name is a user defined data type. Okay, so which is associated with the object variable. So the object is identified by the class name by its type. In the case of the constructor and destructor, they are member functions, special member functions belonging to the class. Okay, so but to identify a constructor and destructor, though they have the same name as the class name, the destructor, before the name of the destructor, you have a tilde, this symbol written. Okay, so that represents a destructor. So always when that symbol is written, okay, and same as like the class name, so keep in mind that is a destructor. So whereas the constructor function allocates memory to create a class variable, so this sentence, the destructor gives back the memory, effectively destroying the class variable. Okay, so the constructor, it allocates memory for the class variable, that is the object, the data members, right? In the case of the destructor, it gives back the memory, that means rollbacks the memory. okay, vacates the memory, so destroying the class variables, that is the data members, then the class object, okay, so that the memory can be reused again. The destructor can perform other activities such as printing out final values of the class data members, okay. So when defining a destructor for a given class, the following rules apply, okay. So the first one we have already seen, name of destructor must begin with a tilde, okay. Then you cannot include any return type, not even void. So next one, a class can have no more than one destructor, okay. So you can have many constructors within a class, one default constructor, okay, and as many parameterized constructor or copy constructor. But in terms of a destructor, there can be only one destructor in a class, okay. So what happens if you don't if you do not explicitly declare the destructor? So if you omit the destructor, okay, the compiler automatically creates one for you. So upon the termination, upon the object going out of the scope, okay, means the purpose of the object, once it is done, okay, the destructor automatically gets invoked and destroys the object, okay. So the class destructor is automatically invoked when the instance of the class code of the scope, okay. So that is what I was talking about, okay. The destructor cannot have any parameters, okay. So it cannot declare any parameters. That means within the parenthesis, within the destructor parenthesis, nothing can be written, not even void, okay. So here you have your destructor here, okay. So this is normal class declaration. The destructor, like I said, it is also declared in the public section, right? So when an object goes out of the scope, it gets destroyed due to the destructor, okay. So the memory that is used by that object is reclaimed just before the object gets destroyed. So by what? By the destructor, okay. So any cleanup to be done is performed by the destructor only, okay. So the destructor, okay, it is used to destroy the object that have been created by the constructor, okay. So like a constructor, the destructor is a member function, okay, whose name is same as like the class name, but it is preceded by a tilde sign, okay. And another thing is that destructor does not take any argument, okay. It does not return any value. Keep in mind, how is it invoked? If it is not declared explicitly, then it will be invoked implicitly, that means indirectly, by the compiler when, okay, the block of code for the object gets out of the scope, okay. When the purpose of the object gets done, okay, then implicitly the destructor will be called, okay. So why? To clean up the storage that is no longer accessible, okay. So always a good practice to declare a destructor in the program, okay. So now what it does is, okay, here in this particular program, okay, you have the normal private access specifier data members, okay. You have your public member functions, you have your default constructor, you have your three parameterized constructor, okay. All have the same constructor name. The parameter name type is also same, however the number of parameters differs, right? 4 3 2, like that. Then after that only, okay, the destructor function will be declared, okay. So here this is your destructor, okay. Before that you have a tilde, the same name, okay. It looks like a constructor. If this was missing, right, it would look like a default constructor. But keep in mind, we can have only one default constructor and we can also have only one destructor, okay. So this is your destructor. So it is written after the constructors, and only after the destructor is declared, you can have the other member functions, okay. You can declare the other member functions below there. It may be input data, it may be display, it may be get put data, like that, okay. So how does it work? Okay, so based on this particular program, the programs are quite same, okay. Here also like you have one default parameterized constructor declared here, okay. This is your destructor declared, this is your member function declared, okay. So in the main function there is an the class employee declares an object emp, okay, and then within the parenthesis of the object, okay, you see that the values, data values 100 means Sujata PG computer 12,500, these are these are declared. Okay, so what happens is that these arguments are to be belongs to the object and it is being passed indirectly. So that means there is an implicit call, this is an implicit call to the parameterized constructor, this one. Okay, so the value gets passed from here to here. Okay, and then from there it gets transferred to the object data members. So the object data members occupies memory space now. Okay, when the data gets transferred 100 to emp code, then the memory space gets filled up. Okay, so now what happens is that the object data members occupies the memory space. Okay, once the object gets declared, the memory space gets is created, right? So after that, the next case is emb.display. Okay, so this member function will be invoked. So you have here your function definition. Okay, this is your calling function, both are your calling functions. This is your function definition, your function body for the member function display. So it will display the employee code, employee name, employee designation, salary. Okay, so but what about the destructor? Okay, it is not written here, right? It will not be written here. Okay, why? Because uh, it will be called, it will be called automatically. Okay, as long as here the destructor has been declared, right, and the destructor body has been defined here, right? So this is the destructor definition. Okay, the function definition here. So within the body, the simple cout statement is written, employee class object destroyed, right? Okay, so by default, okay, irrespective of whether this body cout statement is there or not, okay, what will happen is that um, once the scope of the object, okay, is performed, okay, after that what happens is that once the scope of the object is performed and the value gets displayed, okay, then automatically the destructor gets called. The destructor gets called and invoke this cout statement, employee class object destroy. Okay, even if this cout statement is not there, what will happen is that it will vacate the memory space that was occupied by the data members, and then finally the object gets destroyed. Okay, so the object goes out of the scope, the object gets destroyed. Okay, so that is the purpose of the destructor. Okay, so the purpose of the destructor, I hope that you have understood from this particular example, okay, is to destroy the object, okay, thereby vacating the memory space. So it retains the memory space. Okay, so this is how a destructor role is done. Okay, so I hope by this program that you have understood. Okay, the rest is just global class objects, local class objects. Okay, how object gets declared locally, how object gets declared globally. Okay, that we have seen in the previous programs. Okay, local class objects we see in all the programs. Okay, global class objects declared also we have seen when we use the constant keyword, right? So uh, go through this program. Okay, try to understand this program. The structure is quite simple to understand. Okay, however, if you still have any problem in that, you can message to me or you can ask. Okay, so that will be for it today, and then from tomorrow I'll be going through the solve exercises. Okay, so always remember that the video quality may not be that good, so it's your duty to have the textbook ready, okay, and just follow my explanation or wherever I'm pointing at. Okay, so that will be for today. Okay.